certified artist and business coach, and you're listening to Terry Talks, where we discuss all things taboo, uncovering art industry nonsense, grounding you in confidence and leadership to run an arts business with unwavering power and grit. Hey, what's up, art people and any other creatives that are listening or fans of Terry Talks? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Between the Two of Us, a spinoff of the Terry Talks podcast where I sit down with the most dope and insightful humans in the art world. I wanted to switch things up a little bit today and invite my hairstylist. I know, my hairstylist of over a decade onto the Terry Talks couch. I love hearing people's stories. I am your quintessential stranger talker. Like, I love the chit chat in the grocery store. I live for all of it. So regardless of whether they're directly connected to the art world or the fine art world, we really, it's important to listen to any type of story that requires a freelance living and anyone who runs their own business. And a tattoo artist, if you're listening, let's talk. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and rate this podcast so that it reaches more artists in the art world. I have also decided to open up applications to be a guest. Check the description for the link if you've got an interesting and, of course, taboo topic you'd like to talk about or a story you think would be interesting to share. I'd be really open to exploring that. We'd hop on a quick call, do some brainstorming. So I'm really excited to hear from some new people out in the art ether. Even if you're not a fine artist, I would love to hear your story. If you're a freelancer, if you're creative, if you are starting your own business, let's dive into that. So let's jump in. I want to introduce my hairstylist of probably, I want to say like 15 or so years. Gina was born and raised, she's a Jersey girl. She's been in the beauty industry for almost 19 years and she's 35. So Gina started working as a hairstylist at 16, which is bananas. And her art career has now withstood working at numerous salons, owning her own salon, being an employee and freelancing, and now has found a happy medium in her own suite. And she'll talk a little bit about what her business model is today. Although she's still facing some entrepreneurial challenges, which is totally and completely natural, the love and passion Gina has always shown has been the reason that she keeps fighting and growing her own business. So we're going to talk a lot about the realities of entrepreneurship and, of course, leadership and what kinds of characteristics it actually takes to be a leader of your own business, your own marketing. Hey. Thank you so much for taking the time out today to join us. I know that today was, what do you call it? Bridal trial day? Is that the official name for it? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know the hair lingo, but we'll learn about the hair lingo today. What you're working on right now and what your hairstylist career has been looking like, maybe in the past, let's just say 2 years, and your journey a little bit more in depth. So,
well, I think you may have said I'm a Jersey girl, born and raised. I've been working in the Hudson, Bergen County area for like 20 years now. But the past 2 years, I kind of downsized a little or mid-sized to a salon suite. And it's been like the happy medium for me, my personal life, work-life balance. That's not actually real, but this is the closest to it that I've gotten so far.
What does that look like for you?
Less days here for sure. And then delegating, hiring people to do the booking, hiring people to help me in the salon and out of the salon, all of that stuff that, it's hard to do when you're doing hair.
Yeah. And so for people who don't know what like a suite is, Gina rents a room out in like one of those bigger buildings that has like a bunch of like random, I guess, are they marketing that as office
No,
spaces?
They're called salon suites. They're actually for salons. Well, it's very similar to like a doctor's office.
Right. And then you go up and you kind of go to your room and everything because in Gina's, like on her floor, there's like estheticians and people who do massages and things like that.
Facial today with my neighbor.
No, your skin looks good. I saw it on Instagram. Yeah. So you are now 35?
Yes, just turned 35.
And you said you started at 16, which is wild. What the hell could you do at 16? I know,
right? It sounds
like what can you legally, or I guess not legally, do at 16? Like what happens? Because I know Jersey.
Yes, I think at 16 you get working papers. But in my case, that was the case. But also in my case, I was doing beauty school in high school. So by sophomore year, I had 600 hours I was able to work in a salon. So that's pretty good.
How is it that way now?
Yes. Yes. So you need to have 600 hours to work.
Like you could have cut my hair at 16.
I don't think any salon would have allowed me to do that, but technically I could have. Yes. I was allowed to touch people in a salon.
That's fucking wild. So what was your first like job, I guess, then? Like what
It
were
was
you
like
doing?
a little mom and pop hair salon a few blocks from my house. So I walked to work every day in the summer, just for the summer. And I shampooed a lot of perms.
That's right.
And I swept and I cleaned and I just, watched. But cleaning.
Yeah.
A lot of cleaning. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into like you had mentioned like the happy medium. Obviously, you're maturing, you're figuring out what you want your schedule to look like in conjunction with your husband's schedule and just like that, growing a family, just having more of a life, right? Vacationing and doing this and the dog and all of that stuff, right? And how all those pieces fit in. Because I think that when we're hungry and when we're like, and I don't personally use the word hustle because I hate that. I feel like we're like scraping, for survival. And I don't ever want any freelancer to feel like they're just barely surviving. But there's an anxiety and excitement to opening up your own business, which means that sometimes it becomes like the only focus for many years.
That's how it was for me in the beginning, for sure.
Yeah. So talk to us about, you're out of high school and you get your first salon, you're working in salons. Now you've worked in salons, you've owned your own business. And I want to talk obviously more about the owning of your own business and how that kind of came about. So tell us a little bit about that transition.
So I had my first big girl job in Hoboken and I was there for a while, and met my partner there too. Honestly, having my own place kind of fell into my lap a little bit because the owner that I had at the time, or my boss at the time, I loved her, but she kind of wasn't really running the business the way that she was in the beginning. So I just felt like, it was time to go. And I was going to go to another salon, but my partner was like, we could do this on our own. And I was like, okay, I guess we could do this on our own.
How old?
25. Just about 25. Yeah. So it was just us two. Also, it was a suite, and that only lasted about 2 years before we had to expand because we just had friends who wanted to work for us. Like it was kind of weird, actually, in the moment. Like you want to work for me?
They wanted a piece.
Yeah, and it just grew. I mean, I was lucky.
And your clients from that salon followed you, and you've had some extremely loyal clients. I mean, I'm in Brooklyn and I travel like sometimes an hour and 15. So I think that also added to the expansion. So you've got your suite. And then at what point were you and your partner like, okay, let's go a hair bigger?
Well, what really pushed us, we probably would have waited a little longer, but what really pushed us was they were knocking the building down. So we were like, all right,
okay.
Time.
They're like,
yeah.
Boo.
But we went from 3 chairs to 6. So we doubled in size. Yeah. And the place that we found was right up the road. So it was perfect, just meant to be. But I feel like I learned little things from the first salon that I worked for into the first suite, right? Because my clientele almost doubled just because I had parking. Like little things that you don't think about. You want to be in this like popping area and it's so cool. But so many people didn't come to me because they had to travel and find parking and pay tolls. So when I finally moved just a little outside of it in Edgewater, there was parking. The clientele was crazy. So you start to learn like what actually matters. It's really, Instagram is big, so you can be anywhere,
I mean, I don't even remember you even marketing that hard. I remember like you would change like your location in the bio or something.
Yeah.
You'd be like, everybody, here's the new address. Here's how you make an appointment,
like
and
big,
I was just for you.
These big launches people are doing now, it really wasn't a thing back then.
Right. Absolutely. It was, God, I remember going to that salon and I would be like, fuck, I have to find parking. And like, I think your assistant maybe put quarters in for me or some shit. It was just like one of those, we're all in this. We get it. But that type of customer service goes a long fucking way. And people remember Gina and all of these other scenarios with your reputation, right? So when you had parking, the accessibility automatically was easier. And where do you think, yes, you've had loyal clients, so those clients kind of traveled with you, and how did you build that
I
clientele?
mean, social media was huge for me. Huge. I always think word of mouth is the best way to do it. Like it's old school and it's the best way, but it has changed. It's not just go to Gina, it's look at Gina's Instagram. So you don't have
Right.
that.
Absolutely.
And it's not that I have a million followers, but as long as you have the work to kind of prove what the client is saying, then it's super, super helpful.
I mean, I'd rather a million pictures than a million followers these days. You know what I mean? Like the proof is in the pudding. So let's get into some of the entrepreneurial challenges that even popped up from moving to your first suite to now this larger operation. Give me like three, let's look at three, like 2 to 3 challenges that you were like, oh shit, like we've got to figure this out.
Well, the first one that comes to mind was the renovations, like state board coming and not approving, what's the word I'm looking for, passing inspection, all of that. We didn't really have to do that the first time because it was like
2 girls that are like, okay, we have a dream on what we want the salon to look
Right.
like.
So now it's like walls needed to be knocked down, real stations needed to be bought, and the cost of all of that was a lot. And then to make sure that we were going to pass everything. So that was a big shift, like a huge shift for us, you know.
And I guess that investment was major.
It was. I think it was worth it because we were there for almost 6 years, but it was huge. Yeah.
And so so getting like the logistics of the space. What was another entrepreneurial challenge that came up for you? And because just like any other, you know, small business owner, fine artist, tattoo artist, anyone who has like a brick and mortar, obviously, even if you don't have a brick and mortar, you're still going to have these operational issues.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, like when you have employees too, like that's a lot. Like there's a lot of personalities and a lot of needs. You know, I need this schedule and I need that type of client and I need this special hair dye that like I've never used, you know, things like that. That was a huge shift for us.
What's interesting is that there are a lot of artists that get to a point in their careers where they do need an intern. They do need an assistant of some kind or a virtual assistant, right? To run some of those like social media things that got to go up really fast. And even I've definitely recently told, you know, one client, like, how do you not have, how in this, at this, the caliber in your career, do you not have help? You know, even if it's 5 hours of help, like what can you do with 5 free hours to yourself? And I think that then this client in particular, this was my last episode. It was a live strategy call. And she was like, well, I don't know what they would do. I'm like, are you fucking kidding? Right? All that tiny shit that you just do on, like, you do it on automation. That doesn't, you know what I mean? Like you don't even think about sweeping the floor anymore. You know what I mean? You just do it. It's just got to get done. But their issue is with not so much with the delegation, but it's like with the start of thinking about what to give them and the annoyance of training them. I don't fucking have time.
Yeah. I remember that my very, very first assistant in Hoboken and me not telling her to do anything. And my boss was like, you have to tell her. Like you just did 15 things that she could have done. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So the more you have the assistant, you know, now I have no issue being like, here's the whole list. This whole list needs to get done today. And it's not that you're being mean or bossy. Like, it's just the nature of it.
They know what
they know what to do. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, it's kind of that initial, like, you know, I want to say, like, if an artist needs an assistant, it should be like a full week of training. And then like, let's hit the road, you know, let's get it, because you hire them because they have certain level of skill to whatever you hire them. So if you're hiring, like I said, like hire a fucking, like someone in their 20s who can run your social media, who knows how to link them all together with their eyes closed. They do it in bed, like for fun. You know what I mean? So I think that intimidation of training sometimes is like in more so in our heads, and the willingness and the trust of like, okay, can I give this task over that's semi-important to someone else?
Oh yeah. Well, and in this field, usually when you're done assisting, you're becoming a stylist. It's not like you're just leaving to get another job, right? So before you become a stylist, you get to train the new assistant. So it's like, I don't
Right.
even really have to
Right.
do it, which is perfect, you know? I just have to make sure it's all
Yeah.
getting done.
What were some of the realities that you faced when you had opened up the salon? Your clientele was much bigger. You had you were managing more of a team, and it was still you and your partner. How you operate the business setting with so many women in one
Right.
space. Let's talk about that. I mean, you tried to vet these women as much as possible. And how many employees at the time did you have?
When we first opened, we had 3 other stylists and me and Nadia. So 5.
Some friends.
One cousin, one friend of that cousin. And
In the family.
yeah. Yes, because one stylist was Nadia's friend, one was my cousin and her friend who was like transitioning into being a stylist. She was still helping me and then transitioning into being a stylist before I hired my sister-in-law. So yeah, lots of friends and family. Yeah.
How did that
You know,
work?
I don't
Did it
regret
work?
I don't regret it at all. I think
They were cooperative. They got the situation.
and I think that the way it ended on each girl leaving would have ended whether they were family or not, you know?
Right.
I
Transition
never
into
felt
life.
like there was disrespect or anything. I think all of the issues that they may have had were normal employee.
Like
Yeah,
job issues.
exactly. So I don't regret it because I felt like I trusted them, you know? And it didn't ruin
No, that's really
anything.
important.
So
One of the things that we spoke about in our initial, kind of brainstorming, like what we wanted to talk about on this episode, was the whole family and friends discount situation. Because artists, this is a juicy one, and for anyone listening, I know that this has just hit a nerve because artists, especially, I even think it's when they're just starting out. I think it lasts quite a long time, whether it's on the friends and family on their side of whether they feel like righteously, like they feel like they should get the discount, or it's on our end where we're like, okay, and we just sort of crumble under emotional pressure. And that could last or both. And that could last, a lifetime for some people. But at the same time, I always tell my clients, I'm like, yeah, your friends and family are going to be your biggest fans, but they're not always now. I know you're in a different space because listen, I would want you to cut my hair every week if I was in close proximity to you. But how has that sort of been a thing in your life?
I still struggle. I'm not going to lie. I still struggle with that because
like the boundaries.
It's hard. It's really hard. There's even clients who have become family. And I'm like,
yes,
or I'm like, they let me do their hair before I knew how to do hair. They're still with me. So it is hard. I've definitely raised the prices for everybody, but there's still friendly discounts happening and then family.
Yeah. And then you have really, put down your foot on the cancellation policies and things like that. Is that feeling 100%? Better?
Yes. Yeah. And again, because I hired someone to do that, it takes that feeling out of me and onto her. And she doesn't have the feeling because she doesn't know who you are.
Just listen who you are. She was hounding me down. And I was scared. I was like, I was even in the hospital and I was still like sending her a picture like, listen, I'm really here. Like, people bullshit.
Like, she's the nicest person ever. It's just, it is what it is. And for her, she's like, it's just business. Like, I'm just doing what you tell me to do. But for me, for some reason, I make up the rule and I'm still like, but wait, so.
Let me squeeze her in. They can come tomorrow instead of today. But time is money and like you're there and, you may not get paid hourly, but you definitely expect a certain amount of money to be made by the end of your, let's just call it a shift. You know what I mean? And so even though like an artist or any creative who's freelancing, like we might not get paid, I might not get paid I don't get paid for this episode right now. You know what I mean? Like no one's like being like, Terry, you have to record this episode. But at the same time, if for some reason, like you had canceled, like I obviously could have delegated something else to myself, even if it's like not an essential, I could have, I schedule my day just like any other adult. So what has made like the biggest impact on you as a business owner? What are some things that you feel like you've just like stuck with, the longest, or something that has to just be there in order to lead your own business? Because now you left that larger scale business, and what happened from when you had that larger salon to then back to downsizing again?
It's like why I did it. Well, a lot of things happened. The lease was up for one, and we got new owners. They were raising the rent more than double. They raised it whatever the legal amount was, which I think was like 1.5 times. Yeah. So it was kind of ridiculous. It was, after COVID at that point, we had lost some girls, and then my partner had a baby. So it was just a lot. Yeah, it was a lot for me.
Yeah.
Now looking back, I do miss it a little bit. I probably could have made it work if I wasn't so overwhelmed. Like I couldn't see clearly. So I probably could.
There was a lot of hustle and bustle in there whenever
If I had worked a little less and hired someone to help a little more, I probably could have kept it. But I couldn't see that in that moment. I was so just get me out of here. And that's what happened. Yeah. And I didn't even come to working for myself again. I went straight to working for someone else because I was like, done.
You were burnt out.
I was very burnt out. Very. But then I missed it. So here we are.
I don't know what's fucking bothering you. You know what I mean? This is like, it's what I said before. It's a chosen lifestyle. Like you don't have to work for ourselves. There are plenty of places that would love to hire us. But at the same time, there's also nothing like being able to walk your dog in the
You're
middle
not
of the
scratching
day.
That itch either. Like working for someone else, it didn't matter how hard I worked or how little I worked. Like it was still her place, Yeah. In here, it's like if I can, there's no limit to what I'm doing, And there, it's like I just really wanted someone to tell me like, hey, you should do this, you should do that, let me help you. But she didn't do any of that. So you know what?
Right.
What am I doing here? Let me just work for myself again.
And now you have a cute little suite. And what is your team look like now?
So right now it's just me with 2 assistants. Jasmine helps me pay rent in here. So we share roommates basically. So we rent together, and then she has an assistant and I have an assistant, but one of them, hers, we share. So there's 4 of us.
Okay. I love that. And that's manageable. And the thing that I'm hearing from you that it seemed to have the biggest impact was one, well, sometimes the grass is always greener, but you also kind of did take a break, from that like big hustle and bustle of like a space that, the music's pumping and the adrenaline and everyone's got their own chair and everyone's yapping and like gossiping,
And I love that though.
No, I mean, that's real, but that's like the school salon like thing. You know what I mean?
The industry changed a little bit too. So that was a learning curve for me too.
How did it change?
These salon suites are new. Like they're just now maybe 5 years they've been legal in Jersey. So I feel like now anyone who has that like business entrepreneur mentality or who wants to do more and give like this great experience isn't really working for someone. They're working in here. And then because if you want to work for yourself and have all these employees, you're not going to get good employees because all the good employees have a suite. It's almost too easy not to do it if you have a clientele, So,
I mean, even more so after the pandemic. I mean, everyone started working for themselves. They're like, oh shit, I can leverage online. I can have a virtual store. I don't need a gallery anymore. I don't need this. I don't need that.
As a client, you don't really need to go to a big salon. Most of my clients didn't like going to the big salon. They like this better. Yeah. So it's like you can be in your garage in a shed and have an Instagram and people will come,
You heard that. Okay. You can be anywhere. I mean, the thing is, it's like, you don't always need like this crazy upscale place. First of all, I also would rather give you cash than have like every single time I went to that salon, I'd be like, oh shit, I'm paying only a portion of what you get. Like that to me hurt because I'm a business owner. So when you think of my artists having to split 50% oftentimes when they're in a gallery, which is the base, is splitting 50% on one singular drawing or painting or sculpture, I'm like, can I just Venmo you later? Like, can we bypass the cap and can we just like go through it? It does. And then having to
Yeah.
split
I
that,
didn't realize that until I worked in that salon that so many of my clients were upset about that. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
really care that money?
It's like the morals or the
Yeah. Yeah.
ethics.
A few clients tell me, I don't care that I'm paying this much. It hurts that this lady's getting it. And she's like, not here.
Obviously, finding new clientele and being in someone else's
Right.
space when they have something built in, there's always positives, right? But also, it's like you said, it's so much easier these days to do it
Yeah.
ourselves. When I think about, I've been thinking about curating my own art show and I haven't done it, because being an event planner is not really, and it is a lot of event planning, but in general, it's like I could do it on my own. I could do it wherever I wanted to. I don't need like this fancy space to do it. I need a bunch of fucking white walls. Like at the end of the day, you need a
Yeah,
sink.
exactly.
You need like that's it. You know what I mean? If we really want to think of being an entrepreneur as bare bones, and I don't even know if I like the word entrepreneur because it's not like you and I are doing something magically like universally different. You know what I mean? We just have that leadership, the grit, the commitment to like go through some of the hardship, learn these lessons, and then figure out and tweak. And it seems like you've really been reflective on what you needed to tweak every step of the way, whether it's personal or
Oh,
professional.
yeah. Oh, yeah. This time you should see my notebook. This time I was in Fortley, like writing all these notes, like, not going to do this anymore, not going to do this. Anything that gave me
Really?
stress and anxiety at the main loft, I was like, I'm not doing this time. I don't care who I have to pay and how much I have to pay. And in reality, when you think about what you're paying versus the time spent, it's
Yes.
not even that much because now the free time that I have is like one extra client and I'm making more than the person I'm paying,
Right.
girl math, big girl math.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No. And it's very true. It's definitely very true. And I wish that, if you can trust outsourcing, I mean, listen, I've had shitty experiences outsourcing. I've had great experience outsourcing. I mean, you do have to sort of be on top of all the logistics and make sure you and other people are completely on the same page. But of course, like there's nothing like for me, there's nothing like being able to take a fucking nap in the middle of the day. Like I just have that. No one's yelling at me. No one's telling me to get up. Like, I'm managing my own time. And you do have to be very good at managing your time.
Not for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to be good. I'm not a morning person. And that I've totally surrendered to that idea that I will never be a morning person. I will work out at 6 a.m. and still shower, eat, and go and take a nap so that I can survive another 8 hours. And that's just like, I get to do that. These women all go to the doctor's offices, all go to their other places of work. They go right at 8. Like it's time for them to keep working. Well, I have the luxury to do that.
It's like Groundhog Day for them.
Yeah, I feel blessed. And every time that I think about and I don't complain, some months could be slower than others monetarily, but whenever I am thinking of complaining about something or like, I don't know where to start today, or I'm like, shit, that's a fucking great problem to have sometimes.
That's something to say. It's kind of a good problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I could do any one of 5 things really. But yeah, discipline is definitely, I think, when you're mentioning some of these things, like what advice would you give to other artists breaking into any creative, I own this shit industry? What are like 2 things that you would say? They're in their 20s. They've graduated, whatever's happening.
Discipline is definitely a big one. I totally agree with that because when you don't have a boss, I think some people just think like, oh, I could take off whenever I want. And I've seen people do that. But the biggest thing, at least in this industry, if you're not here, you're not getting a client. So even if you don't have a client, you should be here because someone else has a client who might now start to get to know you and say, oh, well, this girl's always here. Can't she do my hair if you're busy? Plain and simple, right? Or you're watching or you're doing a mannequin. Like that's how I built my clientele in the beginning too. So you always have to be there, even if it's a couple hours a day. If you have no clients, just be there.
I mean, I love that you have no qualms about recommending people. And that's something that I genuinely love about you is that you'll be like, hey, I'm not there today, but like Jasmine can do it. Or like my assistant's, totally up there and ready to like take you on,
That was for me. So I do feel like
Yeah.
I learned that way, you know? And there's no positive things that come out of competition, you know? And I
Yeah.
feel like what is the saying? Like what you give comes back to you. So like if I'm giving out clients to people, I'm only going to get clients back.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that in, especially in the coaching world, there is that like gatekeeping aspect that I've dealt with a lot, even in such a niche like arts business world where there's like a handful of us. I've definitely dealt with that. And recently, two of my clients have met with other coaches, a coach that that I know. And I'm just like, great, get a different
Yeah,
perspective.
totally.
Sure, it's wildly
Right.
different, but like, then find your medium. Find whatever like you like, because my life is not their life, and it's not like I've had one therapist for the last, 4 decades. I've gotten different perspectives, and some of them have said the same shit over and over again, but like, it's still like I've gotten second opinions from doctors, there's always going to be, and I think everyone should be able to do that. But I love that you're open to recommending people, because I mean, it's not, at the end of the day, it's not your hair. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I should give them. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I've always felt that way. I mean, back in the day, there used to be salons that like, if you were my client and Jasmine wanted to do you, she had to pay me for your formula. Yeah, that's crazy. That is so crazy. Yeah, it's not, I don't believe it.
That's like I guess it's like a finder's fee. It's like you're in real
Yeah.
estate.
But it's not like that anymore. And that's just so silly. Like the client gets to go to whoever they want to go to, and that's it. People have moved at given them their formula, like it's, what am I going to do? Tell you, no, you're not allowed to have what I came up with? Like, that's so silly. I'd rather just help you.
Absolutely. I mean, I introduce people. I think that making connections and like, being able to spread the love is the most important part of being a freelancer, to be honest. I also will always remember people who gatekept from me. I will never forget those people. Never. They're, wherever I go, whoever I talk to at the grocery store, at the cafe, like you don't know who the stakeholders are. You really don't. And I've gotten some really shitty like first impressions this year of people who've snubbed me, or people who haven't taken my call, or people who've said they wanted to meet with me, but really did not. You know what I mean? They just like maybe wanted some of my clients, and that's cool. That's totally fine. But at the end of the day, like, I have my own experiences, and I'm not going to then push them onto other people. I just would rather people find out, have their own experience. So, next steps for everybody. Thank you for listening, first off. And Gina, thank you for spending some time with us. She's sitting in her hair salon now. So I really obviously appreciate you telling us your story, and just like, it's still wild to me that you were like physically working at 16. I was like hanging out at the park, smoking weed. I'm not sure what the fuck I was doing. If you would like a freaking amazing colorist, hairstylist, all the good stuff, if you are someone who's getting married, I think your books might be
just for this year.
Okay, just year, guys. And the year just started.
No, just weddings.
If you're doing a 2026
I can refer you a lot of great girls too.
Yes, absolutely. She does have a great wedding network, but I will make sure to tag all of her stuff at the bottom in the description. All of the other information on how to work with me is at the bottom in the description, and stay tuned for the next episode of Terry Talks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another unfiltered episode of Terry Talks. I've also got some free resources on my website that'll help make your life a lot easier as an artist in business. You can also check out my services or apply to work together. Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and sign up for my